Hello and welcome to the Economy Magazine. I'm Benjamin Chong Alfares with the news from the global economy. Coming up today, the U.S. boosts commercial relations with Myanmar. As Israel's premier mobile event takes off, we interview summit organizer Othri Leitner. And Italian rice conquers palates and hearts worldwide. First, the headlines. Private wealth held by households globally surged more than 14% to $152 trillion in 2013, driven by a strong rebound in equity markets since 2012. A report by Boston Consulting Group showed the number of millionaire households rose to 16.3 million in 2013 from 13.7 million in 2012. Asia-Pacific, excluding Japan, led the global surge with a 31% jump to $37 trillion. China saw the biggest jump in Asia as private wealth surged more than 49% in 2013. Given high savings rates in China and India, Asia is expected to overtake Western Europe as the second wealthiest region in 2014 and North America as the wealthiest in 2018. India's new government unveiled a program for rapid economic reforms aimed at creating jobs and boosting foreign investment. The government will introduce a general sales tax, speed up approvals for major business projects, and focus on attracting private investment to the coal and defense sectors. The plans will also tackle bottlenecks that make India's food inflation the highest among major economies. India's economic expansion has slowed markedly, growing by 4.7% in the 2013-2014 financial year and marking the second year of growth below 5%. U.S. billionaire investor Wilbur Roth is selling his remaining shares in Bank of Ireland after almost tripling his investment in less than 3 years. The 1.8 billion shares are being sold for 26.5 euro cents each, raising about 477 million euros for Roth's 5.5% stake in the bank. Roth, Fairfax Financial Holdings, and 3 other investors paid 1.1 billion euros, or 10 cents a share, for a 34.9% stake in the Irish lender in 2011. Bank of Ireland returned to profit in the first quarter of 2014 for the first time since 2008 as impaired loans fell and lending margins rose. Rolls-Royce has signed an agreement to open a dealership in Cambodia, one of the world's poorest countries. The company has appointed HGB Group as its official dealership to represent the brand in Phnom Penh. Rolls-Royce is now represented in 15 markets throughout Asia, having recently opened dealerships in the Philippines and Vietnam. The starting price for Rolls-Royce vehicles is $450,000.
Why now and why not before, or why not after? I think that we have a model range that means that we need to become actively involved in the market. It's simply that. There's enough cars here, creating enough work, particularly in the customer satisfaction after-sales area, to enable us to establish a business here.
The U.S. opened its first commercial service office in Myanmar to help American companies invest in the fast-growing emerging market. Though the U.S. softened sanctions in response to reforms undertaken, conditions remain for the full normalization of relations. More on this report by A24 News reporter Daniel Roth.
This is an unprecedented alliance. For the first time, a United States commercial service office has opened in Myanmar with the goal of helping U.S. companies to invest in the fast-growing economy. With 7.5% growth in 2013 and the same expected for this year, it's clear to see why.
As part of the department's enduring commitment to the Asia-Pacific region, and given the promise of existing and future reform, I am pleased that we are opening a new commercial service office here in Yangon.
Since the end of the junta in 2011, Myanmar has been engaging in both political and economic reforms, which have convinced the U.S. to lift some of the sanctions they had placed upon the Asian country. These days, the economic connections between the two are growing fast.
U.S. businesses are here today, they will be here tomorrow, and they want to be part of the future of this country. So let's continue to create more ties that bring our businesses and our citizens together. Doing so will create more opportunity for people of both of our countries.
Officially open.
U.S. exports to Myanmar were only at nearly $10 million in 2010, but by 2013 that number was closer to $145 million. And according to data from late April, the U.S. is aiming to bring that number up to $245 million.
Israel's premier annual mobile event, the Israel Mobile Summit, takes place today featuring panels about the latest mobile topics, an innovation showcase, and a contest of the hottest Israeli mobile startups. Here's i24 News journalist Daniel Roth in an interview with Ophir Leitner, founder of Mobile Monday Tel Aviv.
Today was the Israel Mobile Summit. What was it about? What happened there?
So the summit is the fourth annual summit that we are holding here in Israel. I think it's one of the most influential events, and one of the main focuses of that is actually app monetization. I think that one of the challenges facing today, the app developers face today, is how to monetize their apps. So we have actually a lot of companies coming from that area, and of course one of them is Facebook, who is arriving for the summit as well as many other companies from the advertising networks and all kinds of monetization companies. I think Israel has a very unique app economy that consists of two pillars. One of them is app companies that basically develop apps mostly for consumer use. We all know companies like Waze and Viber that were actually sold for almost like $1 billion, and they stand in the first row of the biggest mobile exits in the world, right after WhatsApp that was sold for $16 billion. So we are now actually, this is one pillar. The other pillar is of Israel is the app monetization companies. I think Israel is a very big player in terms of how to make money out of apps, and these are companies that actually help the app developers make sense in terms of their business, and there are many companies here that are either advertising network or other monetization players. The mix of both these pillars actually create a very unique ecosystem that helps one another.
We see a lot of startups, a lot of exits, but we don't see a lot of companies aiming to be Israel's Nokia or kind of taking the startups to the next level. Can we expect something like that? Is that something that's coming in the future? A
lot of companies did maintain their independence for more than they actually might have should have, because I think that both Waze and Viber had acquisition offers even before for sums that were also quite high. So they did try to maintain their independence, but in a certain point, I think, a company has to think, can I develop better by remaining independent, or can I actually go with one of the big partners?
We hear a lot about mobile being the future of the digital economy. Where do you see that going? What's the future of mobile?
I think, first of all, today mobile in a way is everything. Most startups that we see here in Israel are basically mobile startups, and even if they are not mobile only, they usually are mobile first, meaning deploying their technology first on mobile devices. I think that the mobile actually brought in a new category. People today are much closer to the mobile devices than they are to their desktops. So I think that this is actually, so the future of mobile in a way is already here. What we see as trends are, of course, the hyper-local nature of things, meaning that your phone actually knows where you are and kind of, as a result of that, can recommend you stuff to do. Now, this is not a new concept in a way, but that's, I think, one of the key points of having mobile technology. Another thing that we are seeing is the wearables technologies. Now that the phone knows where we are, we're also going to have a glass on us, and we're also going to have a watch. And that actually brings another set of features as well as problems in terms of privacy. But still, I think it's one of the things that we will see in the future. People basically using wearables technologies to extend themselves in a way.
From mobile tech to rice, most people think of Asia when asked about rice cultivation. The following report takes us to Vercelli in northern Italy, Europe's top rice producer, where rice fields stretch as far as the eye can see. Shoots springing up here eventually end up as fragrant risotto on gourmet tables as far away as China.
Chef Davide Bonato's menu features every kind of rice, from salmon starters to ice cream desserts. Trained in London under the best names in Italian gastronomy, Davide has poured all his passion into the small white grain. He grew up here in northern Italy, among the rice paddies in the Vercelli region.
Rice needs a lot of work. It's a culture, a very ancient tradition. It's our greatest treasure here in the Vercelli area. We're very proud of it. And we try to come up with a growing number of new ways of using it.
And it works. With nearly 300,000 acres of rice fields and 1.4 million tonnes harvested each year, Italy is Europe's top rice producer, growing 50% of the European total. The numbers can't compete with the Asian giants, of course, with, for example, Vietnam producing 5 times as much, with 2 harvests a year, compared to Italy's 1. But if the quantities are lower, the quality is very high. Made in Italy, the Arborio and Carnaroli grains in particular are considered among the world's best. And since 2007, rice from the Vercelli region has boasted protection under an EU scheme, joining other prestigious projects such as the Buffalo mozzarella and Parma ham.
The Chinese, for example, are very interested in the Carnaroli variety. Economically speaking, many Chinese can afford to buy it now. They favour the Italian varieties over the rice produced by their neighbours.
In order to meet demand, some Italian producers have decided to create ranges of rice-related products themselves. Sandro and his brothers took over the family business, which was set up by their grandfather 50 years ago. Today, they turn 60% of the rice they produce into flour, ready-made risotto and rice cakes, new products which have helped them weather a rough period in the country's agriculture sector.
In the last couple of decades, margins have shrunk and production costs have risen. A 200-acre farm like ours, when my father was running it, employed just 2 people, my father and uncle. Today, after reorganisation, it employs 4.
Farmers here owe their livelihoods to French monks who introduced rice cultivation to the area in the 12th century. But it really took off with an irrigation mechanism designed by none other than Italy's Renaissance great, Leonardo da Vinci.
And now for a more in-depth look at some peculiar stories from around the world in Media Watch with Daniel Roth. Daniel Roth.
How's it going?
Good, good. So they're not all peculiar necessarily, but they're worth knowing.
This one, the first thing we're going to talk about is really the talk of the town.
Yes.
It's the Israeli presidential election. Of course, Reuven Rivlin won. And we're not actually talking about his winning.
Right.
We're more talking about the process of getting there.
Yes.
And it was a long process of getting there. And most commentators agree that this was a peculiar race in that it was a very dirty race. There was a lot of people slinging mud at each other, which doesn't normally happen in Israeli presidential elections. Just at the end of last week, Ben Eliezer, who had been the center-left favorite, was kind of had to drop out because of allegations of corruption.
Right. Yeah. This takes me to the next question, which is like, I mean, we're the economic magazine. What's the economics, tangent to this story? So to speak?
Look, the post-2011, post the tent protest movement in Israel, it seems that there's a lot more focus on corruption in politics. Of course, Ehud Olmert has been sentenced, and a former prime minister, going to jail. So there's a lot more heat for corrupt politicians, and in this race, you saw that. Again, Ben Eliezer being an example of this. He didn't report on how he bought an apartment in Jaffa.
Allegedly. Right?
Allegedly, and everything allegedly didn't report.
Right.
Allegedly
a penthouse
on an
apartment. Let's just be clear on what this kind of. It's not
they
like this
found
tiny little
2 million
apartment.
shekel, half $500,000 approximately, in a safe in Jerusalem. All these questions about.
And it was
his
money that he didn't exactly earn. It's money that he got from a private benefactor.
Right.
Correct?
And the second runner-up in this election.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Right. Yes.
The second runner-up, Shitrit, also, there's not clear sense of if there's any corruption there or anything, but there are rumors, and most people say if he had won, there would have been immediately investigations. You're talking about a lot of politicians under the magnifying glass for specifically financial corruption, connections to illegal deals, questions about where their fortunes come from.
Sadly, things do pop up.
And things do pop up,
Yes.
and you see people stepping out of the race. And one of the comments here in the newsroom when Rivlin won was, well, he was the least corrupt, probably.
Yeah, I guess he had votes from different sides. I mean, like, what else does he bring to the table? Do we have any clue here in terms of what does it mean for our viewers that are outside of Israel?
Well, so Rivlin falls squarely to the right, in terms of Palestinians, in terms of sort of geopolitical issues. But he also is famously, as Speaker of the Knesset, was very staunchly for the democratic processes.
All right, well, I guess we can maybe talk about it some other time. Thank you very much, Daniel Roth. That's it for us today. I'm Benjamin Chalafars, your daily source for economic and financial reports at I-24 News. Please continue to send us your comments and stay tuned for more on the economy tomorrow.